Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to Albany City Council meeting, October 22nd, 2025 at 6 p.m. And I'll call the meeting to order. Would you please all join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands. City Recorder, roll call, please.
Counselor McLeod,
Present.
Counselor Smith,
Here.
Counselor McGee, Counselor Newton,
I'm here.
Counselor Thompson,
Here.
Counselor Van Drimmelen,
Present.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Okay. Next on tonight's agenda, item 3 is adoption of the consent calendar. Council?
I'll move to adopt the consent calendar as presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next on tonight's agenda is public hearings. The following quasi-judicial, the next following hearing is appeal for the Planning Commission denial of a conditional use application to use an existing residential structure at 506 Ferry Street Southwest as an outpatient drug and alcohol treatment center. The conditional use case file is CU-03-25. Have all the councilors members received a copy of the agenda packet materials and were able to, are you familiar with them?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. I call to order this quasi-judicial hearing at 6:01 p.m. Do any members wish to declare a conflict of interest? Hearing none. Item 3, do any members wish to report an ex parte communication?
I can report ex parte communication months ago, and I responded, I can't discuss that with you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else?
It's across the street from my son's daycare, the location.
Thank you. Does any member wish to report a site visit?
It's across the street from my son's daycare.
I'm
So-
familiar with the property.
Yeah, familiar with where it is.
Thank you very much. Okay. Do any members wish to abstain from participating in the proceedings? Does anyone attending today wish to challenge the city council's right to determine the matter of the participation on the council of any council member in this hearing and decision? If so, please raise your hand. If you are attending remote, please turn on your camera and raise your hand to be called upon. Or if you're attending by phone, please unmute yourself and state your name and to be called upon. At this time, I will call on the reading of the meeting procedures with Planning Manager David Martineau.
Good evening. For all those wishing to testify, please be aware that you must raise an issue with enough detail to afford the Planning Council and parties an opportunity to respond to the issue if you later want to raise that issue on appeal. Testimony and evidence must be directed towards the approval standards staff will describe or other criteria in the comprehensive plan or development code that you believe apply to the decision. If additional documents or evidence are provided by any party, the the City Council may allow a continuance or leave the record open to allow the parties a reasonable opportunity to respond. Failure of the applicant to raise constitutional or other issues relating to the proposed conditions of approval with enough detail to allow the local government or its designee to respond to the issue precludes an action for damages in circuit court.
Okay, item 8, at this time, I'll call for a staff report from Project Planner David Martineau. Is there a presentation?
Yeah, I'm just queuing it up here. That was the presenter view, I think.
Oh, there it goes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Fours. Now yours.
I'll just go with my slides as they are. All right.
Or something's happening.
I'll do up the,
Oh, slideshow.
thank you for your patience. So this is an appeal of a decision on the conditional use 0325. And this was for a substance abuse treatment center located at 506 Ferry Street. So the property, again, is at 506 Ferry Street Southwest, and it's in the Hackleman-Monteith zoning district. And the applicant proposes to take the existing residence and use that for an alcohol and drug abuse treatment center. And this case went to the Planning Commission on May 19th. And at the time, the Planning Commission decided to deny this application. Shows that, I just need to, oh, good.
There we go.
Okay. So Article 22 of the Albany Development Code classifies the use as a community service when it's operated by the government, nonprofit, or a charitable organization. And so the applicant proposed no exterior changes to the home except as needed for ADA compliance. This would require a separate review by the Planning or the Landmarks Commission. So the review discussion, or the conditional use review criteria is found in Development Code Section 2.250. And the subject property is historic contributing in the Monteith District. And again, no proposed exterior changes, but for any future ADA upgrades that might be required, in which case I would go to the Landmarks Commission. So the Planning Commission, on a vote of 5-3, denied the conditional use application on May 19th, 2025. And the decision to deny was based on the code definition of what community services were. Community services are operated by the government, by a nonprofit, or a charitable organization. At the time of denial, the treatment facility was considered a for-profit LLC. The applicants have since filed articles of incorporation on September 4th of 2025 as a domestic nonprofit corporation. And I will say this, in our comprehensive plan, we actually have a goal dealing with implementation within historic districts. And that goal statement says to expand the list of conditional uses permitted within the historic districts to increase the adaptive reuse of historic structures. So the decision options you have tonight is either approve the application as is proposed or conditioned, approve the application with modifications, or deny the application, which would uphold the Planning Commission's denial. If you do decide to approve it, there is one condition of approval, and that's under historic review. Exterior changes to the structure may require further review and to contact the historic planner prior to undertaking any work in order to confirm if a review is required. That's what I have for you tonight. Do you have any questions?
I do have a couple, well, at least one. So the condition for denial, one of the reasons for denial was it was not a nonprofit.
Correct.
So as it sits right now, this is a for-profit corporation based on what we're doing right now.
That's inconclusive based on what I heard this afternoon, and I think I'd like to defer to the city attorney for clarification.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. So as Mr. Martineau said earlier, May 9th, I think in May, this was denied at the Planning Commission. It was at that time a for-profit LLC called Recovery First LLC. They appealed that denial as Recovery First LLC. And then last month, they formed a new company or a new corporation called, and I can't remember, it's Core or something, LLC. However, tonight, you should look at the applicant, the appellant in this case, as the for-profit company because there's not been a new application filed with this new company, with this new nonprofit. It's still a for-profit alcohol and drug recovery center at this point. Now, if they were to come back later with a new application, it's a whole new story, but right now, tonight, this is what the Planning Commission saw, which was a for-profit LLC, and that's what's before you.
Council, any other comments? Councilor McGee?
Is there intent in the future to file for a nonprofit? Because he said,
So they formed a new nonprofit LLC on September 4th of last month.
right,
But that wasn't the original application. So when they went before Planning Commission, they didn't have that LLC, and that was formed last month. So tonight, you're looking at what was before the Planning Commission as they were a for-profit company. They have if they choose to, they could go back and refile a new application
As
as
a
a
nonprofit.
nonprofit. Yes, they could. But they have not done
Councilman
that, no.
Cloud?
So to thank you, sir. So to clarify, the current applicant is a for-profit corporation, and we are to base our decision on the current applicant being a
The
for-profit.
current applicant being, being what was before Planning Commission. So that there's been no, basically a new company comes in, it's a new entity, it's a new set of facts. Now they're a nonprofit. So what you may hear tonight was not before Planning Commission. So it's been a change of facts since then. So it would warrant a new application.
Right, so, but tonight's decision is based on the original application,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And so should this application be denied, they would then have the option to reapply as the nonprofit, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, but tonight's decision is based on the original applicant being a for-profit corporation. Thank you for that clarification.
Councilor Van Dremelen?
I have a question about the staff recommendations in the packet. So the staff recommendation I see was to approve with conditions. And can you perhaps speak to, because it sounds like the Planning Commission took a different view of community service as quite literally like only those three things in the definition. The different view represented in the staff recommendations?
So when we have like a community services, kind of a purpose statement for that, and then we have use examples, we use those as guidelines for figuring out how to classify the proposal when we get the application. And in this case, we saw that the application was for a drug and alcohol treatment facility. We didn't look at whether or not it was government, nonprofit, or charitable. And to be honest, I mean, it just didn't occur to us. It was a drug and alcohol facility, treatment facility, and it was considered as a community service use. But it didn't, but to the letter of the regulation, it did not actually call out those that are for-profit. And so for that reason, we felt that the application was able to more or less stand on its own through the review criteria.
Okay, so follow up to that. So based on the letter of the code, though, since this is a conditional use, it wouldn't have been outside the purview of the planning commission, nor would it be outside the purview of this body as the folks hearing the appeal to say yes if we agree that the use that the property is to be put to fits within the definition of community service, yes?
Yes, it was a very discretionary review, and that's why it is a conditional use. It's not left up to staff, but it goes through the planning commission.
Okay. But the very specific categories in the definition don't preclude that and haven't in other reviews. Am I understanding this correct?
That would be my understanding as well. Yes.
Excellent, thank you.
Councilor McLeod.
Thank you, sir. So my next question, I believe as a follow-up to Councilor Van Dremmelman, is if this is approved tonight and it is approved under the applicant being a for-profit business, would this operation then continue to be a for-profit enterprise?
It would be up to the applicant.
It would be up to the applicant, so we would have no say in whether they are for-profit or nonprofit.
Well, they could use either one, yeah.
They could use either one, should it be approved tonight. Thank you, sir.
I see where you're going.
I have a question.
Councilor Smith.
Comment. When I read through the packet and got to the change, it was like a punchline. And I just think it really muddies the entire case. I wondered why we were hearing it as a de novo hearing when to me, there should be a new application that goes to the Planning Commission, and it's messy. And I'm not comfortable with this at all. So I may be the only person with that opinion, but it just seems like something you do it, after you've thought about it. And oh, by the way, it's awkward, and I'm not comfortable with it.
I understand that.
Councilor Newton.
I concur with you, Councilor Smith. It feels almost like a shell game, and even the email that was used for filing for the nonprofit was the business's name, business URL. I found that very interesting, and I'm even very hesitant. I'm wondering if we should revisit how our planning, there are some terrible nonprofits out there. There are some great nonprofits. It's making me want to revisit some of our use cases. I'm wondering, does this nonprofit entity that was just filed last month have bylaws? Does it have a mission? Does it have a board? Does it have anything that would even preclude it? Does that mean that the location now over on Elm Street is now considered a nonprofit? How do we know that the nonprofit actually operating in this building? Really, it seems like there was not enough due diligence done when purchasing this residential property to understand that it could then be utilized for the use that they wanted it to be.
Councilor Thompson.
Yeah, just to add on to that, going through this, I didn't see the connection between 506 Ferry Street and the newly incorporated nonprofit. I think that's tenuous at best. So I don't see where does it, there's a key individual that's listed. The individuals kind of changed a little bit, but there's a key individual in both their previous business charter with the state and their new nonprofit. I agree with everything that's been said. It's sloppy, and I agree, and it's making me lean towards upholding the Planning Commission's denial. I think that's the default.
Okay, so
It's sloppy.
okay. Thanks, councilors. I appreciate your feedback. We will now take testimony from the applicant. Would the applicant please make your way to the dais and state your name for the record?
I'll leave in just a minute.
Of course.
Hello, my name is Celia Cicada. I'm a project manager at Veritone Architecture. I do understand the perspective of council members in terms of, yes, this nonprofit was created as a direct response of the denial in May. When we were reviewing our options through city feedback, this seemed to be a clear way to address the primary concern in the denial. Nowhere in that conversation with the city were we ever alerted to the fact that basically you were essentially transferring the applicant information, or that there would be a disagreement between applicant information. That was an issue we didn't find out about until today, frankly. I would also say that, you know, you can do conditions of approval. If a condition of approval is that the nonprofit solely operates out of this building, you can do that as to formalize that part of the agreement. You know, as far as my client is concerned, they are very serious in terms of what function this building provides. For those of you that may be unfamiliar how many of these services work, there are portions of services that are privately funded. It is, you know, private individuals paying for their own treatment and recovery. There's also a lot of cooperation and engagement with government and community organizations. So they are basically carving all of those community-based activities to be operating out of that house. So they would no longer do any sort of private care. This would really be fully coordinated community services, just so that there's a fine delineation between what happens at, what's the?
Queen, Recovery First versus Core Recovery Connections.
Core Recovery, yeah. Sorry, that one's a hard one to keep in my head. So Core Recovery would be fully community-based, fully engaged in those parts of the services, which means, frankly, that we actually see a reduced occupant load because many of their services are out in the community. It is therapists and counselors going out to the community, going to the people that they need services. So we are happy to take a look at those types of agreements that, you know, have a kind of a more well-defined standards for what happens as part of the nonprofit activities in this house. But again, like, we're happy to engage in all those conversations in good faith, and we have done everything in good faith. You know, when the issue of the nonprofit status came up, we asked, okay, what do we do with it? The city told us, well, consider being a nonprofit and what you can do to be a nonprofit and, you know, provide those services. So that's what my clients did. Again, it feels really odd that we're finding so late in the game that we can all of a sudden not do that, or that it kind of makes the whole application invalid. You know, I also am a little confused in terms of the city's attorney's statements today, because my understanding in conversations with the city, with a land use attorney, with a land use specialty that we frequently work with, is that you really have up to the date of the appeal or to the new narrative filing to bring new information. So new facts, new interpretations, like, you can always present new stuff up into the appeal. I've never had any feedback that the application that was presented in May is frozen in amber.
Yes.
I would just like to say that,
Who are you?
I'm Angela Kelly, I'm one of the owners.
Thank you.
I would just like to say, like, us filing for a conditional use, switching to nonprofit is all based off us coming in here and what we've heard. Recovery First has its own location now. It's over on Queen. You can drive by and see the sign up. You can see that it's there. It's not even connected to the house anymore, based on what we've been told by the city. And so we created there's nothing shady about it. We created it because they said that's what it needed to be. And I don't think that's shady. I think that our community has a fentanyl crisis, a housing crisis. I mean, that house sat empty for years, nobody using it. We have already put over $15,000 in restoring and repainting and upgrading on the inside. We have no plans to change that or to change the fact that it's a historical home. And we're really just about helping our community. You don't become a drug and alcohol counselor to get rich. And I saw in some of the comments that that was the case, that we are trying to make money. And, like, I'm sorry, I make $26 an hour. I don't make a lot of money, and we have put everything into this. Did we not follow? It was our first time. We didn't really know what we were doing, but we have stuck with it, and we're going to continue to stick with it.
Council, have any questions?
I wanted to mention a comment. I know the First Christian Church is in the application. They also have a child care center. That is not stated, and I know that the drug and alcohol services they do is in the evening, not during the day when the child care centers are open. Wanted to mention that fact. And then also, I'm sorry that this is your first time purchasing property. I feel like more due diligence should have been done before purchasing it, because you were buying a single-family residence that was zoned single-family, and maybe your realtor or someone else should have guided you better. But it really feels like, especially knowing there are other locations throughout the city, downtown, and in other areas where this type of business, could have been easily put in there without this entire process, without even having to do an appeal or. So it feels a little frustrating, and it's,
Yeah, I will say, Counselor, that there's only been a small handful of realtors that I have met that even know that you need to talk to an architect before you buy a stinking building. It is an endemic issue. We have people calling us all the time that only find out after they purchase the building that they can't do A, B, and C, and they had no idea that these things even existed. And then they ask us, like, why is it that the people 3 doors down can do this? And, I was like, well, they did this 10 years ago before code enforcement was really strict, and that's the best answer I can tell them. Like, this is a wider public education issue in Oregon.
So question, didn't you guys purchase your other building over on Elm?
I didn't, no.
That someone else did with your organization that might have had experience purchasing buildings?
No, that was her first time.
Okay, so you just got lucky.
Yeah. Most people get lucky most of the time.
There was no guidance or advising. I'm having a hard time believing that when you're a business owner and are, have extended education, master's degrees, additional training. I understand that you're saying that folks that this is an endemic issue, but that frankly isn't the at the fault of the city.
No, it's honestly the fault of the states and the public education at that level. But it is really, really common. I don't think we can fault a single human being, because what we're taught is we talk to our real estate, we hire a building inspector, and we talk to the bank, and away we go. People don't think to call like someone that's a code specialist or an architect when they're buying buildings for commercial use. They really don't. It's only the most experienced clients and developers that understand that is just part of the process.
Councilman McLeod, do you have a question?
I do. Thank you. It's probably more of a statement. But I just wanted to say that I feel for you as a homeowner and as someone who has helped others with addiction. I feel for the mission that you have. What I think we have here is a paperwork issue. It's not anything other than that. I think that, like the city attorney said, we have to make the decision based on the original applicant. If that is that decision from the planning department is, the planning commission is upheld, then all you have to do is reapply as the nonprofit, and then you probably have a better chance of it being approved at that time.
Yeah, we definitely understand that. I think what I would like also further clarity on at this time is whether that application, once submitted, is kind of frozen in time on its initial hearing. Because fundamentally, that's part of the issue here, is that we were repeatedly told by both experts in the field and city staff that we could submit additional information, we could update information. This had a certain amount of flexibility in it. What we're finding out that no, like what this is based on is the snapshot that was taken in May. And so if that's the truth, I would like to first, interrogate whether that standard is consistently upheld, and if that is the future standard we will be held to.
I can clarify some of that. So the applicant's correct when she originally was saying that she thought she could bring in additional information to this hearing. This is a de novo review, which means it's like a Latin for new eyes, right? So it's a new review of this. So additional information can be brought in any de novo review. The issue we have here is it's not that the information coming in can be new, it's that the applicant at the time of the appeal was a for-profit. You can't switch the applicant during an appeal process. So don't have a land use example on the top of my head, but if hypothetically, if someone was applying for an alcohol license and the planning commission could grant those, and they were denied because they were a convicted felon, then they appealed that process. When they came before the council, if a new person showed up and said, well, I'm here to get that liquor license, it's a different person, it's a different applicant. And what we had is Recovery First is a separate entity. It has a separate tax ID number. It's its own entity. And the new entity that they have formed is also a separate entity from Recovery First. So if the other applicant or the other LLC was the applicant here tonight or had gone through the process, you have a whole different, well, you have something more to think about, right? Because the issue of it being a nonprofit is not an issue anymore because it is a nonprofit. But that wasn't the issue before the Planning Commission. And so people who saw that hearing, if we switch the applicant now, those people weren't given notice that we have a new applicant here. And I get it's the same people, it's the same principles, I understand that. But it's just not the same applicant that was in front of the Planning Commission. So the Planning Commission would need to see that, so.
Counselor Thompson had a question.
Yeah, so putting aside all that discussion for a moment, I want to get on the record some of the criteria, if that's appropriate. Criteria number 3 is about the transportation system being able to support this kind of conditional use. And that area, parking is an absolute premium in that area. It is the courthouse use. The idea that, the Twin Rivers Market is meant for the people or for the businesses there at Twin Rivers, or Two Rivers. There's other lots farther away that I think it kind of defies common sense that people are going to park at Water Avenue and then walk to 506 Ferry. I live near the facility at Elm and 11th, and I see folks, I'm assuming prior and following their appointments, I'm sure they use the bus, waiting. If that's the case, that's going to be folks, it's mentioned in here up to 30 visits in a residential area. And I don't think that's compatible with the residential area, which is actually section 5, criteria 5. It's not only a residential area, it's our historic Monteith district. And I think taking an historic home and changing it for this is just fundamentally not the Albany that I want to see. Which is more of an editorial comment, I realize, not the planning, but we've just gone through beginning our strategic planning, and we all talk a lot about what draws us to Albany, and historic Albany is very much a part of that, and I think this is just not compatible with the underlying Monteith-Hackelman zoning.
Go ahead, please.
Sure. To address a couple of your points, within the recovery community, peoples with driver's license and vehicles are underrepresented. A very huge portion of their clients require public transportation, or they use a community service that actually buses them to their critical appointments. So, this isn't the same type of traffic that a retail space or a private therapy space, like a couples counseling place would have, simply because licenses and car ownership are underrepresented. On top of that, you have staff that is heavily engaged in community service, so they are out driving in the community, going out to people that need their assistance. Beyond, the idea that, houses don't occasionally have high amounts of people in them, That feels a little dodgy to me. I mean, every Sunday I host 20 to 25 people in a 1,400 square foot ranch house every Sunday during the winter. That's normal in my neighborhood. I would also say that when it comes to the character of a district, there are types of codes and is language that can be used to describe the functional characteristics of a neighborhood. This is the type of business we're trying to encourage. This is the type of activity we are trying to encourage. The way that conditional use works is they are asking about the architectural character. Is anything fundamentally changing about the architectural character of this house? No, they're not doing anything to it. And if anything, that they have vastly improved the interior of the house. There are structural upgrades that house has desperately needed that they are engaging in. And then anything on the outside would be protected by Historic Commission. I would also say that, the idea that people that are suffering from substance abuse are not part of our historic town or any town's history. No, it's been here the whole time. It is.
Well, from my perspective, it kind of beggars belief that a commercial activity, a nonprofit of that intensity, is not going to take that at some point in the future, do some significant changes to that residential home to make it make more sense to their operation, and that would not, the interior of the home would not be subject to Landmark's review. And I said I live near the 11th and Elm. I fully support it. I think there are many areas in the community where this would make sense. And I think this does not make sense in the Monteith-Hackelman zoning.
So what I'm hearing is you would like, who got something? Go ahead, Counselor.
So, statement and a question, kind of going along with Counselor Thompson's line of thought there. So first of all, it seems like, so the denial based on your organization being a for-profit company versus a nonprofit, to me very much seems like we're quibbling over a technicality. The service that you would be providing out of this location is the same, yes, if you are operating as a for-profit versus a not-for-profit, like which type of LLC, that's my
Under
understanding
a
of that is.
nonprofit, they would have to be more tailored to the community service engagement. It does slightly shift.
So
the
in what way,
activities in the house.
so I guess then in what way would that alter the way that you would provide services before I get to my second
Want to speak
question?
to that a little bit more?
Yeah, so based off of what was said at the last meeting when it was denied, and the recommendations to file the appeal and to get a nonprofit status, we got the other building to run Recovery First in, which we're waiting from our letter of approval. We have a program called Just Care that operates currently out of Dynamic. And it is meant to be a nonprofit anyways. Clinicians go to the client's home, they go to homeless camps, they go wherever they need to meet the client at. There's no group involvement in that specific substance use criteria. Like, there's no group. It's all individual, 5 days a week with your counselor. And UA is 5 days a week. Very seldom, except for things like doing the assessment, which is easier if you're in the office because you can type it, versus sitting in your car at the park. So it would be more the clinicians going out into the community to where the clients are, and then occasionally, like even having groups there is not gonna happen. We moved that to Queen Street. That's not gonna happen in the house now. Based off of what we've been hearing, everything we have done has been a result of everything that we have been told here, well, you need to do this, or you need to fix this. And that's what we have been doing the whole time.
But is that, so just to clarify, that changed, you say that's a result of what we've been told. Is that directly tied to operating as a nonprofit out of that location?
So based on everybody saying that it was too many people in the house, the traffic would be too much, it's best to do that there and move our other to where people come to do groups to a commercial building, which we did.
Okay, sure. I can appreciate that you're trying to be responsive to feedback from planning staff, the planning commission, et cetera. But my question is more directly tied to, because based on my current understanding is like the services provided would at least be substantially similar.
Yes.
Whether you're operating as a for-profit or a nonprofit.
Correct.
So to me, that seems like a weird standard to set as a city, that the same service would be acceptable provided by a nonprofit organization, but not by a for-profit organization. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And if that's going to be a sticking point in the future for our planning commission folks, I think that we need to take a look at our code and see if that level of specificity is really what we mean and what we want. But my question that I was driving toward before I got a little sidetracked into some other follow-up questions, my apologies, is why 506 Ferry, other than the building was available? Like that obviously plays a role. I'm a real estate person, so like availability is one of the primary things you look at first. But like why that location, to kind of piggyback off of Councilor Thompson's line of thought?
Yeah, so originally our plan was
Close to the microphone, please, so I can hear you.
Originally, our plan was to open a more like sober living based out of there, and it could house more people. That was the very first part of the application that we created. But then we found out you need fire sprinklers and all these things that we could not afford to do. I mean, the truth is like, should we have bought another house? Probably. But we ended up with this house, and we've been trying to make it work all along. We can't, I mean, we both have invested money in this place that I get everybody's concerns about you didn't do your due diligence. Well, we didn't know that, first off, you had to file a conditional use to even have like an Oxford type of house now. We didn't know that. And so now we're just trying to do the best we can with what has happened. We can't change that that's the house we bought and that all of this came because of that. I mean, it's definitely a learning point for sure.
Okay, so it would be fair to say that the original intent for the use of the property was different than what it is going to need to look like moving forward,
Yes.
but it can still be a viable property for your organization.
Yes.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Councilor Smith, do you have anything?
I'm focused on a remark that the architect made earlier. I didn't catch your name, so I apologize for that. But you mentioned encouraging certain types of business activity in certain areas. I don't believe that this is the kind of, encouraging business activity in a residential neighborhood doesn't sound compatible to me. Encouraging residential activity in a residential neighborhood is good, especially a residential neighborhood that's bordered by daycare centers.
Yes.
I fully support drug and alcohol treatment. Family members have been recipients of that many times in the past. And I understand what you're trying to do. I don't think this is the right place. And to lay this on a technicality, changing from one type of entity to another, is, in my opinion, more than introducing new information in an appeal. That's substantial information. It's a huge change. Maybe it shouldn't be the deal breaker here, but it's, I'm simply stating my opinion here. It just does, it's a bad fit.
Okay.
Understood, and I apologize for the confusion. My previous point was simply to state that in our reading of the code, when I read the word character as it applies to our situation, to me, that clearly reads as architectural character.
I understand that.
So
Can I-
since the council's asked
Can I
questions.
ask a quick question? On page 79, item number 6, it's like a little she shed kind of structure, it looks like. it says treatment. Are we doing treatment out of a she shed kind of thing?
That's going to be used as a little office. It was an existing shed, and so there, I believe,
Like treatment in the office, or what is, I'm just trying to understand what the use case is for that.
for the shed, it's trying to make something that's existing usable.
Okay, I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and I will say that from a build, for a lot of times when we're looking at the use of a space, we look at it from a building code functionality, and we have to, as policy, default to what would be the most hazardous use for any given space. So when we look at something that is primarily someone's office, if they're a therapist, we have to assume that at some point they will have a second individual that in there that's their patient. And so from like a function of space and building code perspective, we need to label it as such.
Okay, but it doesn't have insulation. It wouldn't be like a real office.
It would need a, part of this would be a separate building permit after this that would document any of those types of things.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I want to concur also with what Counselor Smith said. I have relatives who are addicts. I'm supportive of the services. I just do not think that this is the right building at all, the right structure.
I just want to say real fast, I hear a lot of the counselors saying that they fully support, but this is not the place for it. And I just have to say that, it's a little bothersome to me, specifically with Counselor Thompson's remarks about what it looks like to be in historic Albany and et cetera. We need to be very careful about the language in which we're using, especially in terms of folks who are going through these types of services, and show a little bit more compassion. And to your point, Miss, who owns the space, you're doing the best with what you got. As somebody who has a nonprofit, I'm going to tell you that there are a lot of things that you don't know when you embark on it or when you open a business. And yes, people say you should do your due diligence. You may have gotten conflicting information from multiple sources, and it is very hard to figure out. And when you're trying to do something and do it in the best way you know how, then there are things that come up that you are just trying to respond to do what needs to be done in the moment. With that being said, it is unfortunate that this has happened, right? But we are here. But I just want to say on the dais that I think that some of us, you've had family, et cetera. Beside all that, I think we just need to think about the people in our community who are suffering from addiction and recovery and things of that nature, and give a little bit more heads off to the people who are helping get that situation under control here, because that's very hard. And I think that we need to think about that while using language here, sitting in this space. It's very important.
So I'd like to pull us back to the agenda, the hearing. So we will now be taking testimony from first those who are in favor of the applicant, then followed by the people who are in opposition, and those that are neutral will come after that.
Mayor, can I ask a quick question of City Attorney?
Yes.
If we were to approve this, would it set a precedent for if someone comes before us and says, I just wasn't sure about X, Y, and Z? Would that then set a precedent that we would need to allow future applications that might come before us?
It could. If you're saying that that you approve it, saying, well, we know that they made some mistakes, didn't do due diligence, but we're gonna overlook that, or you put that in your decision, in your findings, then it could set a precedent, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
It depends on how we wrote the findings up at that point, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
We will now be taking public testimony first from those in favor of the applicants, followed by those in opposition or with concerns, and finally from anyone who's neutral. If anyone wishes to enter an exhibit into the record, it is part of your testimony. Please briefly, my eyesight, describe the exhibit and then email it to the address to the city recorder. Written testimony that was submitted by the deadline via email has been uploaded in the city website as part of the agenda packet. Bill Orger. Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Oh, no, you didn't. I read the wrong box. Does that say Jody? What's your last name, miss? Jody Warren?
I have my letter that I already sent in. So do I need to include it as an exhibit?
I think he already has it. The city recorder already has it.
I think, if I recall correctly, this might have been received after the deadline today.
Okay,
So we would want it included in the record.
okay, so please, we'll reset our time, please. So do you have a copy for him?
Yes.
Please go and give it to him.
Can I read it?
Are you gonna read the letter?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's do
I
that.
assume I should.
So,
How long do I have?
3 minutes.
3 minutes. As a professional social worker in Lynn County, I'm writing to express my strong support for the Core Recovery Connections proposal to be located at 506 Ferry Street Southwest. Not only do I have a professional experience in this field, but I am also well acquainted with the Hackelman-Monteith District where a family member resides. The commitment of Core Recovery Connections to preserving the historic character of the home and landscape while offering essential services is commendable. Having collaborated with the owners for numerous years, I can personally vouch for their unwavering professionalism and dedication to the well-being of our community. The alarming rise in fentanyl use and overdoses highlights the urgent need for local addiction recovery services. While working with families in the child welfare system, I often encounter parents eager to access recovery services, but unable to do so due to lack of availability, transportation, etc. When children are in foster care, parents need to be close to visit their children while also engaging in these necessary addiction services. The proximity to child welfare, self-sufficiency, parole and probation, the courts, attorney offices, etc., eliminates transportation barriers, making local services even more critical in our large rural county. The presence of other longstanding community services at nearby churches, etc., further strengthens the well-being of the public. And the mix of staff and clients of Core Recovery Connections, the business hours and indoor activities are consistent with others in the area, creating no outstanding noise, traffic, or parking issues based on their services, while also having easy access to all public services, whether that's police, fire, water, etc. Please consider the needs of the larger community to have a safe, supportive space for individuals and families impacted by addiction to rebuild their lives. The timing could not be more critical. I would also like to comment on some of what I've heard here, some of which I've appreciated and some of which has been rather insulting. I have a social work degree, a master's. It does not mean I have due diligence about buildings and nonprofits. So I appreciated Councilor McGee's comments, thank you. And for there to be comments like this is a sloppy application, I think was unnecessary and really indicative of the dislike. So that's unfortunate. But I hope the community and the council will not make this a technical issue and find a way to support this absolutely critical service. I can't say that enough, and I think it's so well known, it doesn't even need to be said. But thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, 4 is Crystalline Arnold. Did I say your name properly? Christy Lynn. I'm sorry about that.
I'll just call it out. I have really bad anxiety. It leads me, it takes from me. I am just here to share, I lived in Albany my whole life. I totally validate the historic district, but I also validate that we do have a crisis going on. People are dying out there. People are using in the historic districts. They use everywhere. I think this would be beneficial. I can say from my own experience with addiction and now working in the recovery community, the one thing that changed my life and for me and my kids and stopped that cycle was people that were coming into my home and teaching me how to live, teaching me how to pay my bills, teaching me to set boundaries. My kid has not been removed from me since I had somebody that came into my home and helped me when my kids were being removed every 2 years. I think that the kind of treatment that they're taking out there is life-changing. I've been housed for 10 years. I've never, ever had any kind of complaint. When previously I had police at my house nonstop. This is the kind of care that needs to happen going into the community, going into the tents, going out where people aren't able to come in. This is life-changing. This is saving lives. And I have worked with them. I'm community partners with them. And I know that their goal is to help people, but their goal is also to have an impact on the community and to respect the community and to respect historic homes. I truly believe that this would be life-changing for many, and I just really am in support of it.
Thank you, Christina. Now we'll take testimony from those that's signed up to be against this project. Bill Orger.
Good evening and thank you. I've been an Albany resident for 48 years, 35 of which in the Historic District. I attended the hearing before the Planning Commission. There were a number, no one doubts the value of the services or the necessity or the humanity of the people who work hard for recovery. But it is like all businesses, you need to be in the right place. The things that were brought up that haven't been addressed were traffic, and whether a person drives, comes by taxi, comes by Uber, or comes by bus, they have to get there. And if they wait for public transportation, they will be there. And so the fact that people don't drive, somebody's going to drive them there. There's going to be a huge amount of traffic. And I don't know whether they're going to have 5 or 10 or 30 people a day, but there's going to be a lot more traffic than there would be if this were a home. Albany's pride is its historic district. And I have seen the rise and prosperity of the historic district and how the city has this identity. But I've also seen that commercial development here is a one-way street. This house will be removed as a residence, and it will never be a residence again because of the interior remodeling that are necessary to make it a business. You know, my house would not be a good business place. My business would not be a good residence. And there are residential treatments. There's an Oxford House 3 doors down from me. It's a residence. People live there. They act as if they are, well, they're my neighbors. They come and go as people do because they have jobs, they have schedules, but they live there. These folks will not live there. They will come and go. And in the previous hearing, there were lots of comments about compatibility with the daycare center, compatibility with a residential center. In fact, the manager of the Oxford House next door came in and questioned this. So this is unfortunate, and the whole shell game of what runs it misses the issue. This is a good service in the wrong place. This is a residential area, and it needs to remain that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Next on the list is Cameron Settlemire.
My name's Cameron Settlemire. I live in the Hackelman-Monteith District. Albany Development Code 2.250, Section 1 says the proposed use needs to be consistent with the intended character of the base zone and the operating characteristics of the neighborhood. The base zone is defined in Albany Development Codes 3.020, Section 8, and that says the HM district is intended primarily to preserve the historic character of the existing residential resources in the Hackelman and Monteith National Register Historic Districts. And what we have proposed here is to take an existing residential resource within the district and turn it into a non-residential resource. And that is completely against the intended character of the base zone as required by EDC 2.250, Section 1. And as noted, once this is taken out of residential, it's very unlikely it will be put back into residential. Albany does have a housing crisis, and this is a residential house that then no longer serves as housing. Albany Development Code 2.250 Criterion 3. One of the things it specifically talks about is street parking impacts. This is right next to the courthouse. This is already a very difficult area to park in. I don't think it's realistic to have employees always be parking 5 blocks away in the winter, in the rain, to come in. I don't think that's how human behavior works. That's in addition to any of the clients that come in. This is going to have a very negative impact on the neighbors there as far as being able to have a place to park by your own residents. And then also a little bit of detail about why the Planning Commission denied is basically talks about in agenda packet page 80, where for the conditional use, a community service is allowed, a charitable organization is allowed. However, a charitable organization has to be a nonprofit as defined by Oregon Administrative Rules 125.030-0016. That is to say, it needs to be recognized as a 501c3 organization under the IRS or a state-created nonprofit. If that's not the case, then this is a for-profit organization, and that's not allowed at all as a conditional use permit.
Thank you. We will now be taking testimony from those who did not register to speak beforehand. Is any member of the public interested in speaking today on this topic? On this topic?
I think I would. Matt?
3 minutes, please.
I didn't come here to speak on this topic, but I was very intrigued listening to the testimony and the information provided. I'm in the housing space, been so for 30 years.
Who are you?
My name is Ben Roach. Sorry, thank you, Ben Roach. I live in Albany, Oregon, Ward 3. Every time I try to get a home order for the Palm Harbor plant, there's always a reason why they can't get a permit. Hear it every day. Lots of reasons, lots of red tape. We don't have enough housing. One of the things I talked to some of the counselors here about homelessness, about drug addiction, about things that plague our communities, things that are destroying our state. One of those things is the fact that we don't recognize that drug addiction and mental health issues are one of the primary drivers of homelessness and this crisis that's facing the state. Our governor called it a housing emergency, but she hasn't addressed the fact that that emergency core issue is what we're talking about here today, alcohol and drug treatment. So think about that. You guys, because the stroke of your vote today, can put a new place for people to find hope, okay? You can cut that red tape and keep these people from having to file a new permit and start over with a process that they probably would be approved in the first place if they knew all the rules. But we're asking them to learn the process right here in front of all of you in a public forum and expect this thing to just go back from the start and start all over again. You know how many families I've dealt with trying to get building permits, this very same type of issue? They do all the things everybody tells them, do the environmental studies, do all of the paperwork, and then they're told, no, now you need to have a new septic. You need a sand filter. Now you need to have a defensible space. Now you need to put in a hammerhead fire thing for the fire truck to turn around because there was just a wildfire last year and your permit's denied again. Same thing I hear again and again, whether it's commercial, whether it's residential, whether it's a small town or big town, is red tape getting in the way of progress. You know, and I'm trying to get along more with progressive people, but it seems like progressive people are always getting in the way of progress. So I'll yield my time. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else like to speak on the topic, please? Please state your name when you come up.
My name is Hunter Hawthorne. I'm a recently new resident here of Albany. Came tonight not intending, I didn't even know what was going to be on the agenda, to be honest with you. And I just want to echo a lot of the sentiments that were said here today. I would like to see if I understand what you are all actually deciding on, because it's my understanding that you are deciding if this organization serves the community enough as a for-profit to qualify for the conditional use requirements. And if this is correct, my question is, what is the difference in barriers to care that someone might face in a for-profit versus a nonprofit? And this is really my only concern. I do, however, find it concerning that we are so behind the times and so far behind Europe that we can't handle an empty building being used to help our community. I also find it very uncharitable and unkind to view, an unkind view to see people who are our neighbors as the wrong kind of addition to historic Albany. I speak as somebody both, I am a history nerd, I have a history degree, I respectfully appreciate some of the sentiments expressed from the other end of this conversation, but I also speak as somebody who lost a very, very close family member to fentanyl. And this is a serious crisis. We have to be able to just meet the needs of our community. And you can certainly see what this, I don't even know these folks all that well, but you can see a lot of what they bring to this community and what they're trying to do. And they're trying to meet you all where you're at and understand your code, understand your process. Nobody comes here with the full grand expertise, but they're trying their hardest. They're doing the best they can, and it's the least we can do. And I really value what this gentleman just said just a moment ago, to understand a lot of the root causes that cause these issues to persist. The fact that, think about housing crisis. It's a big deal. And we have to really question, we continue to see a housing crisis while these other for-profits, these landlords are continuing to raise rents on people. What do people do when they're in desperation? Where do they turn to? Where do they go? And so we have to be able to think about some of these things as we make these decisions as well. So, thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else have comments? Okay, thank you. Does the applicant have any rebuttal testimony? Thank you. Does the staff have final comments in response to the testimony presented?
No, sir.
I declare this public hearing closed at 7:07 p.m. I will now call for deliberation. Does any council wish to discuss this case? Councilor McLeod?
Thank you, sir. I want to acknowledge the applicant's important work in treating drug addiction. It's a service that our community deeply needs and values, and I want to see this treatment center available to the people in our community. My concern isn't with the intent or the merit of this project, but with the process. Approving this application despite a change in applicant could unintentionally set a dangerous precedent where others might change entities mid-process, opening the door to potential misuse. To protect the integrity of our land use process and ensure fairness for everyone, we need to be consistent and transparent in how we handle these situations. Thank you.
Councilor? Councilor Thompson?
I want to echo Councilor McLeod's
McLeod.
McLeod's comments. I don't think any of us here have a personal or a general negative view towards folks in recovery. I feel safe in saying, I feel understood in saying that. Like I said, I live near the 11th and Elms facility. I'm sure it's doing great work. I support it. It also fits into the zoning of the medical offices that are in that area. I mean, this is fundamentally, the gentleman, the young man asked, what are we here for? This is a land use decision that we've been, a quasi-judicial decision that has landed upon us. And I realized when I spoke in general terms about Historic Albany, I was getting more into the general political views over the years, because frankly, I have watched our historic districts kind of be nibbled away at. And like I said, I think this is another part of it, but strictly holding to the land use decision that is before us, there are many reasons why I don't think it fits the criteria. And then you add on top of it, I don't think it fits in the whole discussion over a for-profit entity versus a nonprofit. So that's where I'm at. But this is not about, without a doubt, it's not about. It's a good service in the wrong place, as Mr. Order said. And that's where I land.
Thank you. Counselor Van Dremelen?
Oh, I just said Dr. Orger.
Dr. Orger?
I think I'm going to have to fundamentally disagree here with some things that have been said. I think that particularly given the conflicting standards applied by the city staff review, where community service was treated as based on the service that the organization is providing to the community and the recommendation to approve, and the standard applied by the Planning Commission, which is a strict reading of a particular piece of language in our zoning code based on what community service is. I think one of the most important questions that we have to ask, and I think that it's been alluded to in this discussion, is, well, if they just go back and apply as a nonprofit, this would sail through and be approved. I think I'm going to have to disagree with that based on some of the testimony that I've heard and some of the discussion that I've heard tonight. I think that at issue is litigating the service that this organization is trying to provide in this community based on technicality. I also don't think that if it is the view of this council on this appeal, that if they were to simply go back and reapply as a nonprofit, that this would be totally okay, that it's a good use of city staff's time, the Planning Commission's time, or our time to say, okay, go back, reapply, because how long has this decision already been drug out by this process? Again, trying to litigate this on a technicality. So I do not, and this was a structure that sat vacant in the historic district. So I would lean towards approving this.
I would, yep, I'm with you on that, Councilor Van Dremelen. I would have to definitely second it.
Counselor Newton?
I feel that the use of a residential building in that area, I would be, like, earlier today I was at the Serenity Lane event, like down in Eugene. Like, I'm very supportive of drug and alcohol treatment centers. I find that making an exception to places in a residential zoned area, regardless of nonprofit or for-profit, personally I'd like to review, I find it is the wrong choice. It's the wrong place for this type of business. So I'm a no.
Counselor Smith?
I agree with Counselor Newton.
Cloud?
Like I said earlier, my largest concern is with the potential for misuse in the change of the applicant mid-process. I think that in the future, if this is approved today, this could set a dangerous precedent of having applications change applicants mid-process. It's like starting to buy a house and mid-process say, oh, it's a new buyer.
But I also think that we as a city or city staff has to be a little bit more clear in their education of this, because we wouldn't be here had there been not conflicting information. It needs to be consistent, but it has to be accurate and honest. And if you're telling people one thing and they're getting another thing, that's not the fault of in my opinion, the applicant. That's the fault of folks not giving the correct information. And to be honest, it seems like it falls more on us than the applicant.
I absolutely
have to say
agree.
that.
I absolutely agree, but I'm thinking of the future. I'm thinking of future applicants of a similar land use. I'm thinking of applications in the future, should applicants change mid-process, that could be a huge problem in the future. And I don't think we should be setting that precedent today.
Can I make a quick comment?
Sure.
Councilor McGee, I had similar concerns when this was going before Planning Commission. I actually talked to Director Rutgers and I said, hey, did they talk to the city before they purchased this property? He said no. They didn't ask about the land use. They didn't ask about anything overlay. It's only after the fact, after they'd already purchased that property. So it isn't like us telling them later on, like, hey, you can't do that. It was, they made the choice and purchased the property and then realized after the fact. And now this is kind of like a cleanup or how to fix it.
Councilor Benjamin?
Yeah. So I just want to City Attorney, can you please clarify we are not hearing from, there is not a change in applicants, correct?
Yes.
No, they have filed a nonprofit, but that does not mean that the applicant on this land use appeal is a different legal entity than who originally applied to use the property, correct?
Right. So
Okay.
it was, and I can say to save time, and you were expressing some concern about the time that the staff and the council and the planning commission and the applicant would be using. My experience in dealing with LUBA appeals, if this were to be approved tonight, if someone in here that has standing appeals that approval to the LUBA, nothing's guaranteed. But there's a very high probability it's going to be an automatic remand back down to us again, and that's going to be even a longer process. And I'm not, like I said, I can't guarantee it, but I'm pretty confident it will get remanded.
Say more words about that. I'm not sure I understand what you're.
So if someone tonight in here challenged, if this was to be approved by council tonight, and someone in here who was opposed to it, who participated in this proceeding, challenges it to LUBA, my belief is LUBA would find that the applicant who originally was on the application, which was a for-profit, didn't meet the criteria. If that was the criteria that was used tonight, that we said we're going to go against what Planning Commission's recommendation was because we don't think that matters. I think LUBA would disagree with that and remand that back, and we would have to have this proceeding all over again.
With a new
we'd have to have
entity.
a LUBA appeal first in order to do it.
Right.
So
Be the same, it would be the same appeal. It would be the same applicant, the
Right.
for-profit
Right.
LLC throughout the whole.
Or they would just turn around and reverse it and say that you can't switch applications in the process, and then they would have to come back and refile as the new LLC again. So if that's the concern, I think it's probably their attorney, but better for them to do a new application if that's the only thing holding this up. And I don't know that it is, but I'm just saying if it was, that would be probably the easiest thing.
So for me, I like to chime in. Most of everybody up here knows that my family's had drug addiction and issues, even death associated with drug and alcohol. I love the work that you guys do. I really do. One person in my family was saved and 2 people we lost because they didn't have the services like what you provide. My wife used to manage right off 8th Avenue or 8th, Elm and 8th, a behavioral health facility, and she had people that were their drug and alcohol problems. So I do appreciate the work you're doing. But me, I'm a stickler for procedure. As an agent, a person that has a certification and licensing to make decisions for other people, with other people. The applicant before me right now as the mayor of this city is a for-profit business. I would like to see it come back as a nonprofit business, go back to planning, because that's the reason they denied it. And then if they deny it, then come back to us. But that's the only way I can see a clean break for this.
Mr. Mayor, I concur.
I wanted to offer a comment about concerns about red tape and process being in the way of progress. I get that. I understand that completely. I don't know where you make changes in process to maintain public safety and the safety of the community rather than one address at a time. The point of process is for the protection of all of us. And I know it gets in the way of doing things quickly, doing them exactly as you want, but that's the way I view the reason for codes and procedures and timelines. I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Mayor, can we call the question?
Yeah, I'll call the question. Do I have a motion?
I move to uphold the Planning Commission's decision.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Any abstentions? Motion fails. Motion passes, I'm sorry.
Motion passes to.
Yeah, motion passes.
Uphold.
Motion
denial.
passes to uphold.
We're upholding the planning commission's decision.
And as a point of parliamentary procedure, call the question is only appropriate when there's a motion on the floor, and there
Correct.
wasn't at the time.
Okay. Do I need to do it again?
No, but you finished, the chair got to give them their
He's
appeal
just-
notices.
Counselor Van Tremelen is just letting me know that he's better at Robert's rules than I am.
Okay. Next on tonight's agenda. What?
On your chair guide, is there a thing about appealing, if they want to appeal?
Oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Okay.
The decision of the city council may be appealed by persons or withstanding on the Land Use Board of Appeals by filing a notice of intent to appeal to LUBA, not later than 21 days after the decision becomes final. Thank you. Next on tonight's agenda is a public hearing for MUPTI, Multi-Unit Property Tax Exemption Program. For those who wish to testify, there are 3 options available, which were described in the council agenda. I declare the public hearing opened at 7:22 p.m. Does the staff have a report?
Thank you. We do have a report, and let me just share my screen. Looks like it might be doing the same thing that it did to David, where it doesn't show, but. Okay. Good evening. I'm Sophie Adams. I manage economic development for the City of Albany.
And I'm Matthew Rickers, the Community Development Director. Good evening.
So we're here tonight to talk about MUPTI. That's the acronym we'll be using tonight. It's a lot shorter than saying multi-unit property tax exemption over and over. This is for your final review and taking action. But since this is a public hearing, I just wanted to give you a heads up that for the purposes of the public hearing that's required by the Oregon statute, I'll be repeating probably a lot of information that you have heard in previous, I think, 3 presentations. So I appreciate your patience. The purpose of MUPTI, going to let the slide catch up.
The gremlins in the machine?
Okay, thank you. Yeah, it was on slideshow. That doesn't work.
I think this screen is, if you move the screen out the way, I bet the slideshow's behind it.
So she's using the Zoom
Oh. Problem. Okay.
Okay. Purpose of MUPTI. The purpose of this program is to accommodate the growing population in areas where residents can live, work, and recreate, creating vibrant mixed-use centers and helping to protect against developments far away from jobs, services, and activities. We all know about these like food deserts and areas of town where there's all this housing and you don't have a grocery store nearby. This is a program that, that the state enacted in the statutes that you can see there on the screen and in the packet to help facilitate development where that doesn't happen. So this is a property tax exemption tool, as the name implies. In order to be eligible for this type of incentive, projects must meet a pretty lengthy list of requirements. First is location. Projects must be within a quarter mile of a fixed route transit service. There's a copy of that boundary map in your packet. It has not changed since your last presentation. Number of units is also a criteria. A project must create or convert a minimum of 5 dwelling units. That is standard for a multi-unit project, and again, that's a requirement of the state. The type of project is also dictated by Oregon state statutes. So projects must be new, additional, or converted multi-unit housing projects. In order to be eligible for exemption, the commercial portion of a project may be eligible as long as it is satisfying one of the public benefit requirements. Construction timeline is also a factor. Projects must be completed within 5 years of an approved application and before January 1st of 2032. Again, that's a state statute requirement. A third-party financial review will be completed for each application to demonstrate that MUPD is necessary to make the project financially feasible, i.e. the project is determined by a third party that it would not happen unless it received a MUPD incentive. So if it doesn't meet that standard, it doesn't get the incentive. Public benefit is the last one on the screen. It's highlighted because it's essentially the biggest section of the program. All projects must include either affordable housing units or an in lieu of fee, and projects must also include, as it's currently written, at least 2 additional public benefits to qualify for a 7-year exemption, and 3 or more to qualify for the full 10 years, which is the maximum. Really, 10 years is the amount that the state statute provides for, but jurisdictions have the ability to lower that. So based on your feedback, we did include that 7-year option as well. So I'm going to move on to process next, but just to let you know, we're going to come back to public benefit because I think that's where the bulk of the conversation will happen. The bottom line here on eligibility is that a project has to meet all of these criteria and the third-party financial review and demonstrate their public benefits in order to be eligible. Okay, process. So we'll first have projects will have an eligibility meeting before submitting an application. You could kind of think of it similar to our pre-application process that the Community Development Department already does. They'll meet with staff to determine eligibility, do Q&A, staff can provide feedback on the project. Then they'll submit an application and pay an application fee. A fee. No, thank you. So as probably previously mentioned, the fee dollar amount has not been set yet. That will help cover a portion of staff costs for the city, as well as costs for the Lynn County Assessor's Office, who will be helping administer the actual tax exemption part, as well as the cost of the third-party financial review. Typical application fees range in the $4,000 to $5,000 range. So we would finalize that before, of course, fully enacting this. And then I'd also like to note that in the program guide in your packet, under the application section, it talks about the application being due April 1, but that's a typo. It's actually February 1. So down the road, when you take action on this today, you'd want to make it, just note that change. Then there's a review and decision period that has timelines associated with it that are outlined within the state statute. Staff would review those applications and make sure that they fit all of the criteria that the council had already decided on. Then there is a reporting time frame during construction as well as after construction, and in the compliance period, so after a project is completed, the exemptions can be terminated if we determine that the project is not meeting the requirements that they said that they were going to meet. Okay, I said I was going to come back to public benefits. Public benefits is a significant piece of this program, as it should be. This list will be familiar with you because it is in your packet, and you've probably seen it at the 3 other previous presentations. Most of these are mandated by the ORS, but with your previous input and input that we've been gathering over the last few years, we did add a few, so you'll note the local labor, materials, or ownership component is one that the council had previously requested. The accessible units beyond code requirements is something that kind of aligns with some additional accessibility work that the city as a whole has been trying to accomplish. You'll see that there's some things on there that have your input and some that are mandated by the state. And again, projects would have to currently have to meet 2 of these requirements in order to get the 7 years, and 3 of the requirements in order to get the 10 years, and that is aside from the affordable housing component that I mentioned earlier. So I included this next slide to kind of help us think more broadly about what public benefits means in the context of a city program. MUPD will result in increased property tax revenue to the city and the other overlapping taxing districts. But benefits to the city really means benefits to the community, right? Those don't always have a direct financial implication for city government. So aside from the list of benefits that I had on the last slide, another benefit is the creation of affordable housing if the provider chooses that option, or the financial support via the in lieu of fee for affordable housing elsewhere in the city. And of course, adding to the overall housing supply, near transit and amenities, that's the real purpose of this program, and that in itself is a public benefit. So I just wanted to include this kind of snapshot of the process that MUPD has gone through today to get to this meeting. In 2021, the council appointed the Housing Affordability Task Force that represented a wide range of housing interests to provide direction on strategies the city could consider to address current and future housing needs. Their recommendation became the Housing Implementation Plan, or the HIP, which was adopted in June of 2023, and MUPD was a tool that was recommended in the HIP. In March of 2024, the City Council had an initial discussion about the program and provided input. In December of 2024, staff brought back the program with incorporated feedback for final review and got the informal thumbs up at that point to bring back the resolution and ordinance. And throughout the process, we've been working with the overlapping taxing districts as well to incorporate their feedback and to document their support. So you'll see an IGA with Lynn County is included as an action item in my memo. And so that brings us to today. This public hearing is a requirement of ORS, like I mentioned, and final action on this program that has been long in the making. So this final slide just talks about the steps now. So discussion tonight in this public hearing, hopefully approval and adoption of the ordinance to establish AMC 3.10 MUPD. Then there'll be adopting of a resolution establishing the MUPD program guidelines and authorizing staff to enter into an IGA with Lynn County. And then just for your reference, after that, we present the IGA to the Lynn County Commissioners. That's scheduled for the first week of November. We'll present the program to the Greater Albany School District. That's also scheduled for November. Then we would do a finalization of the application and any other documents, including lining up those financial consultants, because of course we don't have them under contract yet. And then we're hoping to start implementation January 1. So with that, we'd welcome any questions.
So written testimony was submitted by the deadline, was forwarded to the council. I hope I had a chance to read that. I will now, would council discussions after this, right? Just a second, I'm trying to get to my guide here. Yes, go ahead, council. Oh, Council McLeod?
Thank you, sir. So with the public benefits, I just wanted to clarify it appears there's a typo in the program guide. Under public parking, there's also childcare facilities. Those are meant to be two separate bullet points, correct?
Yes, thank you. There are a couple typos that we noticed when it got transitioned from our Word documents into the packet. We've noted those, and so those will be part of the changes when you take action tonight. Thank you.
So to clarify, there are currently nine public benefits, correct?
Yes, correct. With the exception of that formatting change, yes, what's in the program guide should be accurate.
I appreciate the work that has gone into MUPD. I would love to see this pass. I would love to see a program like this. However, I think the public benefits are not enough as proposed in this program guide. I think that we should, as I said on Monday, I think that we should have a requirement of 4 public benefits for 7 years of abatement, or 6 public benefits for 10 years of abatement. And that is what I would support tonight.
That would be a financial burden to the person building. He's also, that person, the company, whoever it may be, is bringing jobs to this city. That's a public benefit.
Who? He? Who?
And whatever who benefits from this, whoever uses this process will create jobs for this city. Contractors, developers, electricians, HVAC, we're bringing money to our city. And so to put additional constraints on them is going to make it hard for somebody to want to do the program here.
I think that these